So how long have you been awake for?
Trying to do the time difference. So my flight was at 6:15 Boston time. I was up at 5 a.m., which would be 12. Yeah, over a day.
So you're running on fumes.
Running on fumes, on caffeine.
Great. Well, Napoleon definitely hooked you up there. Claire will probably bring 6 more coffees.
Yeah,
I
I know.
accidentally messed that up there. Very good. How far away are you from, I don't know, Quincy Market? That's the most tourist
Quincy
thing I
Market,
could think about.
23 minutes.
Oh, here, you're right there.
Oh yeah,
then.
not far at all. Yeah,
Legend.
yeah.
I remember being in Boston probably like 6 years ago. I lived in New York at the time, and we were over at a conference. It was like a Microsoft or a Charles Schwab conference. And I was working at the conference just as like a security guard or something random like that, make a bit of money. And in between breaks, we would get these deadly like 20-minute breaks. And so I'd be like flying around trying to see little pockets of Boston like in between the work. And it's a really, really interesting place. And the thing that stood out to me the most was definitely out of everywhere else that I've been, and promise you not just saying this, it really felt like Belfast.
Yeah, it's funny you say that. I had a guy talk to me yesterday. We had our Christmas night out on Tuesday, and the guy, very Bostonian accent, Southie, and he said, "Sean, I'm going to Ireland for the first time in April." He goes, "What are they going to think of me?" And I said, "Well, I don't know. You'll have to see for yourself." And I think what he was basically trying to say was, I'm Irish American. Do I say I'm Irish when I go? Because that's the big thing over there.
Yeah. It's a really interesting point. Although it was kind of like, you know, whenever people heard my accent, I felt like I was like had instant VIP status in the city.
Oh yeah, I mean, and that, do you know, Matthew, that's what I'm most nervous about with this podcast, because when I come back home, it's Sean, you're sounding very American today. So yeah, I don't want to lose that.
I have to admit, like, you know, I was only away for 3 years, and when I came back, I was American as get out, like.
Yeah.
And I've got you at a bad time because you're just off the plane. So this is your hard on-ramp, trying to sound as Belfast as you possibly can.
Yeah. No, it's more the words. See some of the words.
Yeah.
And that's the hardest thing, because especially working with young footballers, young players, and words that we say, and they would just look at me. And I said, "Why are they just looking at me for?" And they had no idea what I was saying. So now having been there 12 years, I have to enunciate.
Yeah.
And I'll also change the terminology. And when I was back doing my B license 5-6 years ago, and I used the word penny instead of bib, and you want to see the looks I got. And I was like, "Oh, I just said that." Yeah.
I had a guy on the subway one time compliment me for how good my English was.
Oh, had a guy say to me, "Oh, you're really from Ireland?" I said, "Yeah." He goes, "Your English is fantastic."
No!
Oh, yeah. Oh, thanks very much.
Brutal.
Yeah.
God bless Americans. Like,
Yeah.
I had a roommate from Michigan, and he asked me, "Do we have iPhones in Ireland?"
Wow.
And this was like 30 seconds before he asked me, "You guys have YouTube, right?"
Yeah. Sounds about right.
Riding around on our horses, like, we absolutely love it over here. It's brilliant. Where were you born and bred then?
Originally from West Belfast.
Yeah.
Moved to North Belfast, Glengarmley, and which is interesting about that is went to Lagan College, which is borderline South Belfast. So it was a bit of a trek going from Glengarmley into the city centre, getting the bus from the city centre out into Lagan College. And then once I left Lagan, my parents moved to the Four Winds, which is a stone's throw from Lagan College.
Oh, mate, so, that's brutal.
That is very brutal.
So Lagan being an integrated school, right?
Yep.
Was that important for your family, or why did they bus you all the way over there? Like,
yeah. So originally come from West Belfast, it's one of those ones where it's La Salle, CBS, St Mary's, one of those schools. And I think, I was raised in a house that didn't really talk about. It was very, very Catholic. Mm-hmm. So my granda bring you to mass on a Saturday night, sometimes on a Sunday morning, but we never talked about Catholic, Protestant, or anything. So it wasn't a religious household from that sense. But I think my mum really wanted me to go to school and see that it's not just Catholics and it's not just Protestants, and you can go and just get the. And to be honest, Matthew, that's now living in America. And I didn't know it at the time, but I was being equipped to go and deal with people from different backgrounds, and that's something probably didn't realize my mid-20s, where I said going to Lagan College was a massive learning step for me, because the first day at Lagan College, I was asked, was I asked if I was Athenian?
Yeah.
And I said, I don't know what that is.
Wow.
And that's a true story. Did not know what that was, which probably seems bizarre coming from West Belfast.
Yeah.
But if you imagine West Belfast, when I grew up, I didn't interact with Protestants, so there was no need to be called a Fenian or anything like that.
No one's calling each other a Fenian.
Exactly. and I didn't know any derogatory words for Protestants either. So it was just, and it was an eye opener where so that was my first experience of when I went to Latin College and it wasn't the people who asked me weren't being negative, or there was just a genuine question.
Yeah.
But it's conversation stemmed from there, so it was a really, really positive experience.
Wow. It is interesting how the second you step out of Northern Ireland, especially if you go to America or I was in Africa for a bit and it was the same there. It's just Ireland.
Yep.
Do you know what I mean?
Yep.
And like, it's interesting how whenever you have a wee bit of that perspective, all the small nitty gritty details that people and we all get or can get caught up on, they just fade away very fast.
Absolutely.
It's interesting.
Yeah, it's when we go away, so a lot of my friends are from all over, and it would be, I'm from Galway, and from Cork, from Connemara, whatever it may be, from Kerry, and I'm from Belfast, and then you get the kind of, okay, and you know that they want to ask the next question, and we just laugh and smile, and some of the Americans would say, "Oh, are you guys okay? Like the North and the South, you?" And I'm like, "Yeah, we're fine. We're fine."
Trying to the George Mitchell in the pub.
Exactly.
That you guys need a beef, mate.
Yeah. But you know what? It's also a great conversation starter, because a lot of people who either don't know about it, and then you can help educate them on it and tell them a bit more about it, or people who think they know about it, and then you can actually say, "No, that's not how it works. That's not the way it is."
Yeah.
And it's not. I know there was a lot of trouble back in the day, but Belfast is a great city, and it's completely changed in the last 15, 20 years.
I think being from Belfast is the ultimate clickbait, because you're overseas, they hear the accent, and then you say Belfast, and then the eyebrows always go up.
Yep.
You know what I mean? It's like it's the easiest way to form relationships. It's just being from Belfast, because people are so interested.
Yep.
It's mad. So football, growing up.
Yep.
I assume you, like most of us, wanted to be pro.
I did.
Yeah?
Yeah.
So how seriously did you go at that?
My earliest memory, kicking a ball, going to school. So I went to Holy Trinity, up around the top of the Mona bypass, and lived a stone's throw away. So I would have a ball, be the first one in the yard, just keep you up, wait on the next person coming, passing about with him and the next person, and then eventually we get up to 5-a-side, 7-a-side, 15-a-side, until the whole playground is just kicking the ball about. Played for our local team. So again, Holy Trinity. So they have the boxing club, they have the football club, and so everyone I went to school with, that's who we played with on a Saturday. And at that age, you're 8, 9, 10, 11, and then at that age I was always fast. So being fast, and I would score a bucket load of goals. Yeah. And then that team, I can't remember having that team. I think I just disbanded, or the manager, the voluntary coach didn't want to do it anymore. So something happened, and then I remember the team folding, and then all the local teams coming, going, "Seán, come play for us, come play for us, come play for us."
Getting scouted.
Getting scouted by the next team over. Yeah. But I think the earliest memory of being told you were decent at a young age was, I went to Man United School of Excellence,
great.
over in the Boucher Road. I can't remember the exact details, once or twice, and then maybe they're like, "Oh, he's not good enough." But I remember going over there, and then at 13, I think it was 13, after being at Latin College, I went to Nottingham Forest. They had a Centre of Excellence in Belfast, so I was playing, funny enough, at Ards Rangers for a little bit, and then playing with Nottingham Forest in their Centre of Excellence. Based out of Belfast, with a guy called Michael Whitley, who was a fantastic coach at the time.
Great. Very, very cool. So was there a moment where the dream was destroyed for that? I don't know. I was trying to think of a delicate way to put it, but that's what it feels like.
Yeah, not necessarily destroyed. It's one of those ones where I think that it's you realize the further and higher up you go, that there's better players, and I think I had opportunities, particularly at a young age, but I guess I wasn't good enough, and I can look back and say it wasn't good enough, which I'm fine saying that. But I also think that it's one of those ones where, in hindsight, if I knew what I knew now that back then, that you would approach it differently. And I think if we look at the 4 pillars of development within football, we talk about technical, tactical, physical, and psychological. I think the one thing from Irish players, whether it's north or south, or anyone across kind of the island, is that going across to England, which I never did, it's just tough. You would think, oh, it's easy, it's a 35-minute flight or whatever it might be, but I think the mental side of the game is something we could do a lot more of over here, preparing young people for going across, and I think the IFA are doing a lot more with that with the elite players over here.
So those 4 pillars, you would say it was the mental side of the game that you were the weakest in?
I would say so, yeah. I was very fast at a young age. I was really, really quick, decent. I was skillful. Physically, I was always skinny. But in terms of the mental side, very, very weak. Yeah. I mean, so you think that you want to be a professional footballer, you're getting these, say, opportunities at a young age, and then when it's kind of there, you're like, oh no, I'm not doing that. I don't want to do that. It's kind of almost becomes a reality. So yeah, I think that I would say whether it's the mental toughness or whatever that may be, or maybe it's just a personal thing where you think, wow, everything I want, you have the opportunity to maybe take that next step, and you didn't want it.
But it's interesting because I think a lot of people, and we could look at different sectors across Northern Ireland, would say something very similar. Like even in maybe corporate world, like a management context, or a musician point of view, or a programmer, or a comedian, or a public speaker. There's that side of our mental game as such, could do with a bit of working on.
Absolutely. I mean, I think it's the fear of, what happens if it goes well? You know, like what if it goes well, it means do I have to go to England? Or if it goes well, like how do I deal with that? And then there's the flip side of, well, if it doesn't go well, am I a failure?
Yeah.
And again, and looking at it in terms of the experiences that maybe I've had, like realizing that failure is where growth happens, and you have to fail.
It's tough coming back to the tribe, isn't it? Like when you were talking about playing on the school team, you're so embedded in that community. And to leave that community, you're maybe a traitor. And then if you leave and you don't bring the goods back home, then as you say, you're a failure.
It's one of those ones where people still say to me today, who maybe I played with at a young age, like I said, 10, 11, 12, 13. I mean, I was good and relatively good. Much better players out there, don't get me wrong. But within my friendship circle, they would always, even today, would say to me, oh, Seán, see, whenever you were 13, you could have done this. And I'm like, yeah, but I was 13. I mean, I was probably an early bloomer type of thing, because again, I was so fast.
Yeah.
So,
but there is something nice at that age, and it is a real confidence builder to be, the best or one of the best in your small community. Like my granny is classic. She definitely didn't make this up. It was like, you can be in primary school and you can be a big fish in a small pond. Then you go to secondary school and all of a sudden you're just another fish. And then you go overseas and it's a completely different kettle of fish. Whoops, that was accidental.
Yeah.
Mad. So, zooming in a wee bit on the community side of football.
Yep.
I don't think a lot of people get that today. I'm not saying in football, I just mean in general. Yeah. Because that it really did stand out to me whenever you were talking about that. I was like, wow, like, this guy knew everybody in his village, quote unquote.
Yeah,
do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, again, speaking from the standpoint of being in America has become where, in America, I mean, to try and explain the setup over there, I'd be here all day. But if you imagine you have your town team, so which would be the local town that you're from, volunteer coaches, probably don't know whether football's pumped or stuff, to be honest. But then you have your club teams, which would be, quote unquote, higher level. Yeah. And what happens is that there's this kind of, they're going at it with each other in terms of, oh, you should play for your town. You don't need to go and play for club. But the players themselves, they love playing for their town because there's that sense of camaraderie and playing with the people that live next door. And But the level's not that great.
You're playing with the plumber.
Exactly. Yeah. Not that great. Whereas you go into the club and there's better players, better competition, and that's where you're going to get exposure to go and play in college or be a pro or whatever it may be.
You're not saying college is huge over there, isn't it?
Yeah, and that's the challenging part with their player development pathway, is that over here you've got players, I want to be a professional footballer. Over there it's, I want to go to the best college. Don't get me wrong, there's players that I want to be a pro, especially when they're younger and their parents going, oh, do you? Yeah, you're going to college. So it's different when if you think about a Wayne Rooney who makes his debut at 16 in the Premier League, and then he's got maybe 8 years of playing at the top level in England, over a player in America who might be a quality player, but they're not playing in the Premier League, and then they're going off to college, then they graduate, they're 22, and then Wayne Rooney's been playing in the Premier League for 8 years. So I think there's a little bit of the culture piece that's going to...
That's interesting. Because I don't know much about soccer in America, but I do know from the American football perspective, like if you're a college level American football athlete, it's like you're almost bigger than in some cases than the NFL. Do you know what I mean?
Which I find crazy. I mean, the fact that there's college football on the television. Yeah. You're watching on the TV, you're in a bar maybe having dinner, you look up and you go...
It's like there's 80,000 people in that stadium watching a university quote unquote game.
Which I don't even know how to answer that because I have no idea why.
Mad. So what brought you to America? What was the...
I was playing for Cliftonville, under 16, I think it was under 16, and we went to a tournament in Barcelona, and it was one of those ones. It was random seating on the plane, and all the lads were down the back of the plane, and I was up the front with the manager. And it's one of them ones where you're looking to the right going, and you look to the left down the back going, why am I here for? And to be honest with you, like that plane journey has probably been the reason why how I've ended up living in America. Wow. Just speaking to the manager, chatting away, and I said, I'd love to try America someday, because I think there was a guy at Lagan College was being talked about going over on a scholarship, and I didn't know what that entailed. And I'd mentioned then to the manager, Cliftonville, and he's like, all right, well, I go out every summer. And I was like, oh, okay, so what do you do out there? And I do a bit of coaching. So I think it was 2 weeks after we got back, he invited me and 2 other players and our parents to come and have a chat to see if we would be interested in going out for the summer.
What a guy.
And myself and one other player went out, and we spent 2 weeks kind of shadowing coaches, just kind of demonstrating and whatever. And then we went to college camp where we were actually players, and there was players from all over the country flown in to play, and that was a great experience. If you imagine, you've got probably 80, 90 fellas and then 80, 90 girls all going, and you've got these 2
perfect.
I mean, it's brilliant. I mean, so you 2 Belfast lads running around with our Night Guard Max and our short back insides, and no, it was great. So that was kind of the start of it, and then the people that we met there just became friendly with them. So we would go back over in the summer. I think it was for maybe 4 years. We'd go back and stay with them. They come over to Belfast, stay with us, and that's kind of how it all started.
That's great. Where was that?
It was in Boston.
In Boston.
Yeah.
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah. So I've been there since.
So how do you make the decision then? You know, you go through school, you do whatever you did after that. Like, whenever it comes to like laying down roots somewhere, how did you make the decision that it would be stateside?
It was tough because my initial plan was to go to Australia with all the lads. They were all going, in October we'll go to Australia. I mean, couldn't get jobs here. Let's go to Australia for a year. And what happened was I went over to America in 2010. It was definitely 2010. And I met my now wife.
There it is.
And there you go. And the rest is history. So
where'd you meet her?
In Boston, in an Irish bar, believe it or not.
I mean, no better place.
Yeah. And she Hispanic, half Dominican, half Puerto Rican.
Incredible.
And like I said to my mate Daki, who was with me at the time, he said, Daki, Mom, we'll go and speak to these 2. And he looked at me and said, you have no chance. So, yeah.
Also, Daki's the most Belfast.
Exactly.
So I think you made it up.
I know. Yeah.
Puerto Rican and Dominican, did you say?
Yep.
Yeah, cool. I used to live in a Puerto Rican neighborhood in called Washington Heights.
Manhattan. Yeah, in the movie.
Yeah, the movie, exactly, in the Heights. And man, like, to be incredibly racist for a second, like, lovely people.
I mean, brilliant people. I mean, it's one thing. So it's been 12 years, and I'm still trying to learn Spanish. It's one thing that we go to the in-laws and they'll be speaking English, and then it's the Spanish talking about me. You know what I mean? So I'm trying to try and surprise them where if I learn Spanish and then I know they're talking about me, and then one day I'm just going to start speaking back to them in Spanish, and they'll be like, oh.
Duolingo flat out on the plane journey over here. Like, come on. I feel like I'm in shortchanged, especially this time of year. This is, where's my camera so I can look into this and be serious? This is not a statement to you at all, sweetheart. I married a woman from Germany. So, but I'd much rather be hopping on a plane to go to Puerto Rico than Germany right now.
Yep, absolutely.
Class. So, talk to me about, like, I've chatted to a few guys, as I was saying before this podcast, Andrew Trimble being one of them, Gareth Quinn being another, and they just mentioned that you have a really good understanding of the American market. This is kind of more business.
Yep.
That you've been really, really helpful for them like getting Kairos into some of the teams over there and building relationships, all that sort of
Yep.
stuff. What do you think is the difference between, and this is a ridiculous question, so take this whatever way you want.
Yeah.
What's the difference between the American market and the home market when it comes to business? Like, is there any kind of cultural nuances that are really different than over here?
I think my experience would be going to America. I went to America to play and coach football. Like I had that was it. And it wasn't until I got there that I realized that football was a business in terms of youth football. And it took me a while to wrap my head around it. And then once I kind of realized how it all worked, I just said to myself, American, like they work hard, the work ethic in terms of how American, you know, when you're on the road over here on a Sunday, maybe at 9 o'clock at night, the roads are dead.
Yeah.
The roads don't stop in America. So I used to think, I'll leave here, it's 9:30, 10 o'clock on a Sunday, I'll be home in half an hour. An hour and a half later, you're going, where are all these people going? But I think in terms of the business side of it, I kind of went in with an open mind. And I think with Andrew and Gareth, I was put in touch with them through a contact from Invest NI. And it was something that I spoke to Gareth. He was in Florida at the time, and I was speaking to him on WhatsApp.
Get the tan.
I know, get the tan, factor 50 on, it burns easily. But I remember speaking to him on WhatsApp, and it disconnected, and I called him back, but it didn't go through WhatsApp. It was just a normal call. It cost me about $250.
No way, are you serious?
I didn't realize at the time.
Brutal.
Yeah. So we were speaking. So I was speaking to him. He was in Florida, and we were chatting, and I was just trying to explain to him about the American market. And when you try to explain, even to my friends back home here, they say to me, "Oh, Sean's out there, coaches football." They don't realize it's a big business as well. So I was trying to explain to Gareth how the youth market worked, and Gareth and Andrew then come over a few days and introduced them to 5-6 people, and just kind of it was interesting to see them trying to wrap their head around the business over there.
Yeah.
And in terms of what I found is the accent again will always get you in the door.
Wow.
So people will be willing to listen to you just because of the way you sound.
Epic.
And it's a funny story very quickly would be with Gareth and Andrew is we were going from one meeting to another, and we were going to grab a quick sandwich, and went to the Panera Bread, and I almost said parking lot. We're in the car park.
Good seeing.
Yeah, seeing myself
very
in
good.
the car park.
I would have clipped that. Would have been on TikTok
Oh,
tonight.
sharing it with everyone. But we're in the car park, and there's no spots. And we're like driving around, and it was me and Gareth in the front. Andrew's in the back, and Andrew goes, "There's a guy leaving. I'll just go and get him. I'll follow him." So he jumps out of the car. Andrew Trumbull walking across, and
Intimidation tactics.
but we couldn't hear anything. So Gareth and I wonder what he's saying to him, because Andrew's just walking over to him. Guy's probably in his mid-60s, maybe early 70s, and they're just walking along the car park, and we're parked, and then they stop, and they're chatting away, and Gareth and I are saying, what are they talking about? 5 minutes goes by, the guy drives off, they're swapping business cards. Andrew jumps in, he goes, "You'll never believe it, that fella asked me where I was from. I told him Coleraine, and he invests in a business based out of Coleraine."
Whoa.
And they swap cards, and I'm like, only in America. So I think, as you said, the whole Irish thing, people are willing to listen to you.
And he's like, "Mate, I just made $1 million off that guy."
There you go, I got a new investor. Yeah.
Epic. So why are the youth teams so big? Is it sort of like college football, where it's like even the lower leagues are just on a way bigger scale than they would be over here, or why? Where's the money? I guess is what I'm asking.
So in terms of youth sports, so the club that I work at, the Boston Bolts, there's different leagues, and the top youth league in the country is called MLS Next. So MLS run the league. You'll have your MLS academies in that league, and then you'll also have clubs like us that have that status. So you won't have, not every club has the status. You have to get in. So in terms of Boston, there's us and the New England Revolution. So we're kind of like competitors, which we shouldn't. They're an MLS club. We're non-MLS, but we play in the MLS Academy League. So what happens is we're a pay-to-play model. So you have to pay to play for us.
Nice.
There's scholarships, merit-based, also financial. I mean, we give a lot of financial aid as well. But it's so competitive. I mean, the cost to rent nearly said field, the cost to rent a pitch out there is astronomical.
Serious?
Yeah, I mean our outgoings in terms of field rental is crazy. I mean, it's crazy. And then they get a load of kit, like they get home kit, away kit, training kit,
all the swag.
Track. I mean, they get everything. So don't know if it's necessary, but they get a lot. So yeah, I mean, and then there's coaches' salaries. There's a lot that goes into it. But And like I said, I was just actually in California last week at an event with MLS, actually at Coachella. But unbelievable facility, unbelievable complex. But you're having under 13 teams fly across 6.5 hour flight to go and play 3 games.
That's
so
mad.
it's, I mean, put that in context. Can you imagine a team from Belfast flying over to America, 6 hours?
Mate, they won't even drive to Derry.
Derry, exactly. I know. Yeah, petrol money.
Yeah, honestly. Absolutely.
So it's. I mean, the way we look at it, it provides experiences.
Yeah.
Parents want to do it. What it provides for, again, looking at the American market, is players want to play in college. So what happens is, as they get older, probably under 15, more so under 16, under 17, they're what's called college showcases. So you'll have Harvard, you'll Stanford, you'll have all the top colleges in the country will come and watch. So that's really what these youth leagues are for, is to provide top competition for college coaches to come and scout the players.
Correct me if I'm wrong completely. Are you basically, what you're saying is, if I'm playing in a team here locally, there's such a big gap between amateur and pro. Whereas what America has kind of done, whether it's by design or by accident, is they've made even the lower leagues act and feel a wee bit more like a pro.
Yes, which you shouldn't have to. Like the lower leagues, your recreational leagues, you shouldn't have to. I mean, they've got the technology that these kids have. It's crazy. Seriously. Every field has a camera, so every player gets access to their game, which is, I mean, it's cool as well. I mean, I'd love to be able to watch myself when I was 10, 11, 12, watching footage back, but the cost that's associated with it is crazy. And that's going back to Gareth and Andrew in terms of being in sports tech. Sports tech in America is huge. You've got players run around. There's another company that they wear trackers on their boots, and it tells you how many touches they had, how many passes they complete, how fast they run. You've got Stat Sports, Irish-based company.
Yeah, of course.
So and they're all for typically the elite model for elite sports.
Yeah.
But they're filtering in the youth sports. But I don't think they're filtering in Europe. Because I don't think the money's there.
Yeah.
But they're in America, because it's all about what can my son or daughter do to get ahead of the game.
So I imagine, and if you have to dance around this, that's cool. But I imagine with that, so it's a great opportunity, but it's just an insane amount of pressure to be putting on, I don't know, 13-year-old kid.
Yeah, and I think that's what we try and, I mean, in terms of our coaching philosophy and the way we try and make it an environment where it's, you can go and we want you to go and express yourself. Like, see everything that comes with it in terms of the level that you play at, what you're trying to achieve. Like, don't worry about it. Like, just go and enjoy yourself. They have to enjoy themselves first.
Yeah.
And I just had a conversation actually before we came in here with a friend, and he coaches under 8s, and he just said, Seán, it's everyone wants to play on the top team. Everyone or the parents are asking, why is my son not on that? And he's 7. He's 7 years old. So, and I think to your point, Matthew, whereas if they're not enjoying it, and the pressure is, and they don't want to play football, they should be playing football because they love it. Yeah. Shouldn't be for any other reason. Like, there has to be that internal motivation. That's what it has to come from. All these external, and it's usually the parents that put the pressure on them, and parents are trying to live their dreams through their kids. And it's usually 2 types of parents. One was, I was decent, or I played, and I didn't make it, so I want my son or daughter to make it. Or it's, I've never played, and I'm an academic, and maybe a professor at Harvard, or it may be, and I have no idea about football, but my son's decent and my daughter's decent, but I'm gonna make sure they're the athlete in the family. But I've no idea, but
and I'm gonna get the sporting equivalent of an A star in whatever this field is.
Exactly, and they'll be the ones that will go to the coach and go, listen, I've never played this game, but I'm gonna tell you what to do. Like, all right, thanks for that. So happens a lot.
Do you have any kids yourself?
No.
Interesting. I'm always interested to see, because you were a great player. I'm interested in
debatable.
You were a comparatively good player, Seán.
Thanks, Matthew.
I'm always interested to see how individuals navigate that, because you see so many parents fall into that trap. I have a wee girl, she's 2. I don't have any sport and prowess achievements to my name, but I'm already thinking, it's like, what am I maybe accidentally putting on this wee girl, or have the potential to put on her whenever she's even in her teens?
Yeah.
As you say, trying to live your dreams through your kids, or that unmet or unrealized potential or accomplishment that maybe you had in your head. It's you got to be very careful with that.
Yeah, I think I always say that if I had kids, I'd just show up, let them play, and don't say anything. And that's probably a fantasy, because I know people who have said that, had kids, And I'm looking at them saying,
"Get that boot tracker on!"
exactly. You didn't run hard enough today.
20 touches. Where were you though?
Exactly. So no, but I do think that having worked in it for so long, and I've encountered every type of parent.
Yeah.
And I just like to think that I just show up. There's a great picture actually of Messi, Suarez, and I think maybe someone else, or maybe it's just the two of them, and their two kids are playing at Barcelona, and they're just sitting back in the deck chair with their feet up, just watching. And if those two can do it, then
absolutely
anyone can do it.
But that's where, you know, like the culture of, like, I'm going to say a real wanky thing here, like real football, you know, where it is a social thing, it's the love of the game instead of kind of like what it has become. And I understand huge money involved, so anytime there's money involved, it's going to be a different game. But yeah, it's a tricky tightrope. But
so I go back to my childhood, and probably every kid in Belfast, in terms of why you play football. You didn't play football because you want to go and live in a mansion and drive a Ferrari and do that. You played because you watched Ari Cantona score the FA Cup winning goal against Liverpool. You go, I'm going to go in the street and I'm going to recreate that goal.
Yeah.
So you played for the love of it, and you played because you want it to be Ari Cantona or whoever it may be. But nowadays, especially with social media and everything that comes with it, it's I want to do that, and I want to get the car, I want to have followers, and I want to I want to put up me nutmegging a player or me scoring this goal, and that's not football. So they're doing it, and that's all external motivation, and then that's where the pressure comes from. So again, where we are, what we try and do is focus on yourself. Like it's interesting where football is now becoming more of an individual sport, which seems like a crazy thing. It seems like a crazy thing to say, but there was actually the Man United Academy Director was on the. Can I talk about other podcasts on this one?
Oh, absolutely. Plug away.
Brilliant. The High Performance podcast, which is fantastic, and he was on that, and he talked about basically it's now an individual sport. Wow. And it's an individual sport with the team being the vehicle on the Saturday for them to go and perform. And he's so right. Everything is this generation is all about the individual.
That's mad.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if you're a goalkeeper, it's all about your highlights, your saves.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, man.
But even in terms of development, like if say you're a left back or a centre forward, it's how can you develop as an individual in terms of a team. So it's individual, and then you just come together on a Saturday, and then you perform in the team. So there's a lot of what we call IDPs, individual development programs, that we now work with players, and it's really just them focusing on themselves.
That's really, really interesting.
Yeah,
I'd never heard that before, and actually, that's really, really curious. Do you think the guys that are motivated by, say, like some of the externals, mansion, car, fame, whatever, does it affect them as a player? Like, do they last longer in the field? You know, if they're not coming from that kind of, that's a very purist thing to say, but like the love of the game or, wanting to get better because they just want to get better at the thing. Yeah. How does that affect them as an actual player?
So I forget the study, but I think the dropout for elite youth soccer players, not even elite, just across the board, was 13, 14. And if you think about 13, 14, you're starting to probably hit puberty, you're starting to think about other things. And seeing if it becomes something that you don't enjoy, I don't want to do this anymore. Why am I going to show up to training 3-4 nights a week? I don't want to do this. I'm going to do something else.
Interesting.
So that's where we try and, again, we talk about goal setting. Yeah. And if you say to a youth player, what do you want to be? I want to play for America. I want to play in the Champions League. I want to win the World Cup. And they're all outcome goals. So they're all focused on the outcome. Again, external motivators.
That's very interesting.
So we try and peel it away. And so we talk about outcome goals, we talk about performance goals, and then we talk about process. So what I do with my players or within our club is help them understand the type of goals. And then we say, okay, now let's think about the performance. So maybe over the course of the month, think about your position, think about your strengths. What are they? Do you ever actually sit down and think what your strengths are? And a lot of coaches will say, work on your weakness. So, Seán, your left foot's not that good. You need to go and work on your left foot. When in reality, you can work on it and get a little bit better, but you want to work on your strengths and then develop your uniqueness and make your strength a super strength. Yeah. So that's the way we coach. That's the kind of message that we send. And the difference when you have players that are focused on performance goals. So it might be for the month of September, I want to play 5 forward passes in each half. I want to get 2 assists, or I want to have 90% pass completion rate. And they say, right, that's my performance goals for the month. And then the process is, well, I'm going to work on my receiving skills in training, or 15 minutes a day at home. So they're now documenting it and they're looking at it. And they have come back to the video piece. They have the tools in place where they can say, right, I can go back and look at it. And did I achieve it? Did I not? Why did I not? So now they're building self-reflection skills. So And that's all with football.
Yeah,
but to develop that skill set and take it away in everyday life is going to benefit the person, not just the player.
So I was literally about to say, it's like what you've just described is like basically like super elite philosophy, where it's like if you can get rid of the outcome goals, focus on the performance goals, and then the process behind that.
Exactly.
Mate, that's everything.
That's
every business accomplishment, music, anything in the world, like art, being a writer, like whatever.
We had a player. I worked with him under 12, 13, 14, and he had talented player. I think he had 3 lungs. He'd run all day. So when he went from under 12 playing 9v9, 9-a-side, and the under 13, which is 11-a-side, bigger pitch, and you'd play him centre midfield, and he'd just run everywhere. And I'd be screaming at him, going, "You need to you're just running everywhere. You're actually hurting us. You need to go back in and have a bit of positional discipline." So I sat down with him and really talked about his goals, and I told him not forget about the outcome goals, but think about them as dreams. And people outside factors are going to determine a lot of that. You can't control it, and let's focus on the performance. Let's focus on the process. So every month, and even sometimes it's just every week, he would do his goals, and he'd send them to me on a bit of paper, and then he would reflect, and he would mark the moments where he would meet the goal, or if he didn't meet it, he would say, "Here's why I didn't make the goal, and this is what I'll do next time."
Wow.
And then so that kid then got invited to a regional ID centre for the national team, got called back for a second one, and then he got called for the under 15 national ID camp out in California. And so when I was speaking to the rest of the club, so we had a presentation with all the academy players at the beginning of the year, I used him as an example. And I said, "Listen, the goal setting piece, we'll help you through that. We'll guide you. We'll stand behind you, 2 hands on your back, and ease you along. But if you don't want to do it, that's completely up to you. Because we can only do so much. Your parents can only do so much. It's up to you as an individual. If you want it, you have to go and show." And that kid wanted it. And that's the result that he got. And now everyone looks up to this kid. Everyone looks up to him. But he's a result of him going through the process.
So where does your startup come into all this? Take a drink, go ahead. I'll stall for you, right? So, because even as you're talking here, obviously you've been coaching for a long time, so you've got a really good understanding about learning and how people actually learn and how people develop.
Yep.
But you're speaking as if like you have an added layer to this that I feel like most guys I've met don't have.
Yeah, so I think, again, getting to America and just seeing how Americans operate and seeing it is big business.
Yeah.
And again, my motivation came from love football, want to help young people, and just help develop the passion that I had for playing football. And then the more I was in America and surrounded by Americans, I realized just how the whole country just worked, and everything just seemed to be a transaction. And what happened one day was I got a phone call from an old player that I used to work with, and they were at the crossroads where they played kind of regional. Then it was the first age group where it becomes elite. And I hate using the word elite, but it's so-called elite.
It is what it is, yeah.
And it's like, which club do we go to? The club that we're at, their elite team trains an hour and a half away. Oh. There's 2 other clubs that train 15 minutes away. We love the club that we're at, but that commute 4 nights a week is going to be tough. And I said, "Listen, I can't tell you what to do, but what I would say is do what's best for your family." And to drive 4 nights a week at 12 years old, it's going to impact them at school, homework, sleep, everything. So I can't just give them an honest answer.
You're losing a whole day, basically.
Pretty much, yeah. And it's 4 nights a week. Yeah. So I got a phone call then, probably about 2 weeks later, saying, "Seán, thanks for your input. I think you were honest with us, and it went against staying at the club where you work. And not many people do that because they always want people to stay. They want what's best for them in their club, not necessarily the families." And I said, "Okay, well, I was just being honest." I mean, and that comes from then integrity. And I think that's the trust then you have to build up, and you have to be credible. I think the number one thing as a coach, you have to be, well, not even just the coach, just in everyday life, just be a good person, but be credible and then build that trust. And he recommended me to another family who I didn't know. So I got a phone call, and I normally don't pick them up when I don't know the number, but I picked it up. "Hi, Seán, I got recommended to you. I'm in this predicament." I'm like, "Right, okay." And then another phone call. And I'm saying to myself, why am I spending 45 minutes to an hour on people I don't know, giving them advice?
I'm just like the counsellor now. Like,
well, no, what it was, I had lunch with someone, and they said to me, "Seán, if this, in any other world, that you're a consultant," and they basically said, "You're a consultant for youth football."
Yeah.
And I said, "I don't want to be a consultant for youth football." And but again, that's the American mentality. That's a business.
Yeah.
So I guess from that, it just kind of got me thinking and said, "Okay, well, how can I help people?" and how would I help people? So I had this kind of gone over in my mind. How would I do it? What way would I do it? And I said, you know what? Mentorship. Some sort of mentorship for young people, but not even just young people, their families.
Yeah.
Because you have to educate the families, not just the kids. And right as COVID happened, a friend of mine who's a coach educator, has 2 masters, UEFA Pro License coach, been in 42 countries around the world. He sent out a self-reflection task for coaches, and I was on the email. And as soon as I read the first question, I went,
bingo.
That's it. That's what it needs to be. So called him up, said, I've got this idea. What do you think? And he said, absolutely love it.
Wow.
And he said, but it needs to live on a platform. So a good friend of mine called him up. He's a software engineer. I've got this idea.
This is Matthew Strong.
That's Matthew Strong, yeah.
Nice.
I said, I need this, I have this idea, I need a platform. What do you think? All right, count me in. So then the 3 of us just started. We met maybe once, twice a week for probably the last 3 years. And we just kind of, Alan built the content, Matthew's building the platform. I'm speaking to people about it, getting some feedback. And then
The Holy Trinity.
and it's just come together. And we've added two new developers recently. And it's been really, really well received. We're working with clubs, we're working with individuals.
Great.
And it's been pretty good.
So what is it? Like if you were
It's basically
to lay it out?
it's an online learning platform,
Mm-hmm.
and really what it does is we've got 4 programs based around mental toughness and personal development. And
Oh, nice.
what has really happened is we've said this isn't really for young footballers
Yeah.
or athletes; it's for young people. And we've said so, but we don't want to get sidetracked because we're football people. So we're basically working with young footballers with a view of going into just other sports and then young people. And it's really a self-reflection tool. And it's really them learning more about who they are and learning about, okay, well, what's happened in my journey? And we give them questions, and it's self-reflective questions. And through the process, we give them written feedback. Then we have a 20-minute Zoom call with them and their parents. And that's been a huge piece. And that we didn't plan that. What we realized is we were helping with positive parenting. And the feedback we got from parents was being incredible. We have been given, I don't have kids, and I'm giving people advice. And I'm saying, I don't have kids, and people are coming to me for advice for their kids.
Yeah.
But you know what? It's been a unique selling point where, and families, the feedback we get when a kid goes through the program, the family will reach out to me and say, Seán, this has been incredible, not just for him, but for us and for our relationship, which has been rewarding for us.
That is so interesting.
Yeah.
Wow. And I love that you've done the smart thing, because a lot of, like, I know if I was in that scenario, especially a few years ago, would have saw the opportunity and been like, oh no, forget football, like it's young people, like we're going to take over the whole And it's like, actually, I like that, because you do have a coach's heart.
Yep.
And I think a good coach's heart is always for the player.
100%. As a coach, a lot of coaches think that the players are there to serve us.
Yeah.
We're there to serve the player.
Yeah.
It has to be about the player.
And I think in some ways, like, sport and a good coach-player relationship has always been about, it's quite parental in that way. It's like you want to see this young person develop, and sport is the vehicle that you can make that process happen.
100%. I had probably about a year ago, I got a message on Instagram from 2 players that I coached 10 years ago. And they're saying, hi Seán, how's it going? I hope you don't mind me reaching out. Me and the 2 other guys that were on the team, this was back in 2011, 2012 maybe. And they said, oh, we're living in Boston now. We'd love to catch up with you.
Wow.
So they were 14, they're now 24.
Mad.
And what was interesting was I sat down, went and had a beer with them, and the stories they were telling me of how, just a simple thing where when they were going from I think it was under 14 to under 15, and I had to have a sit-down meeting with them that basically say, yep, you're getting offered back, or it's not the right environment for you. And they thought they were getting, listen, there's the curly finger, you're getting that go. And I told them, no, listen, we'd love to keep you back. And they said, you don't know how much that meant to me, that you want that. And I'm like, and it's nothing that I ever
of course,
didn't second. I just like thought it was like water off a duck's back, just having the conversation. And I think sometimes you don't realize how much of an impact you can have in their lives.
I think especially these days, what's a nice way to put this, or a delicate way to put this? All right, say a family in America who went against your advice and was commuting, an hour and a half, 4 times a week. Families are busy. Families are mad. There's a lot of stuff going on when it comes to mental health. There's a lot of stuff going on when it comes to family breakdown. Parenting, it isn't probably what it used to be.
Yeah.
And what I love about what you're doing is you're providing a something that will stand in the gap for some of that space that has opened up.
Yeah.
But the parents involved. Do you know what I mean? It's not like the young person is off like doing some sort of mad, like, I don't know, like masculinity developing course of some random TikTok influencer. Do you know what I mean? It's no, this is like it's a whole family process. I think that's really important.
Well, it's interesting because one of the first individuals we worked with, the dad actually reached out to us afterwards to say, Seán, I've been doing this completely wrong. I've been saying the complete opposite of what you guys are saying, but what you guys are saying makes complete sense. Wow. And he was talking about, the kid would talk about, I have to help my teammates and I need to be a better teammate and I need to help my teammates to be better and I need my team. And it's all about his teammates. And we said, no. You need to focus on yourself. You can't help your teammates unless you help yourself. Yeah. So you need to be the best version of what you can be before you can help anyone. And then you will help your teammates by being the best you can be. So focus on yourself. Yeah. And the dad's going, I've been telling him and that he is right, where he has to focus on other people and he needs to communicate more and no, focus on yourself.
And again, massive life skill. Yep. You know, like Tony, who I do loads of work with, I mentioned at the start, like, you know, he's always in any company we go into talking about putting your own mask on first. Yep. And like these kids are getting that at such a young age. I'm like, these guys are going to be like presidents.
I know. Yeah. Wouldn't surprise me. So a lot of what we do, Matthew, is we have video-based tasks. Yeah. So our motivation task, program, the first module is how you're motivated, and the very first question is, why do you play football or why do you play soccer? Wow. And some of the answers you'd be amazed. And then we would have an educational piece. We'll say what intrinsic motivation is and what extrinsic motivation is. Oh my goodness. And then we would ask them the question, okay, so are you internally or externally motivated? And then they'll give the answer and they're like, I don't know. So because then they start to think about it, and that's when they start to reflect. But at the end of the task, we get them to video themselves talking for 90 seconds on pretty much what they've just completed, the work. And see, we worked with a kid recently that his first video couldn't look in the camera and couldn't really speak, didn't speak loud or project his voice, kept looking down. And then see, by the end of the 5th module, so there's 5 modules in a program, this kid just
YouTuber.
Unbelievable. Yeah, he's running for president in 2024. But see that, and so when people say to us, how do you measure success? Like what's success? Show them the video and go, there we go. And so when we had a parent recently say to us that the myself and Alan, they said, guys, I just want to say thank you from man to man for you guys coming into our life to help raising my son. Like it was amazing to hear, because I'm saying to myself, this is an idea I had to help young people, and I'm getting this feedback, and it's just incredible. So it's been a positive experience so far.
What would you say, like, if we kind of like broaden it out a wee bit, like what's the secret sauce? Is it self-reflection? Like, would you say that we as a culture, us as individuals, that's one of the major things that's missing? Like, there is that famous quote where it's like, you don't learn from experience, you learn from reflecting on experience. And I'm not sure if there's a lot of self-reflection baked into people's lives anymore. I don't know.
Yeah, I think naturally as a player, when I would play football, the first thing I'd do is, if you have when you have a bad game, and even if you have a good game, your mind goes straight back to the things you didn't do well. Yeah. So I think self-reflection happens. It's how do you then deal with it? So what we talk about is transformative feedback. So the feedback is all based within their journey. So it's okay, well, this happened, and how did you feel when it happened? Okay, well, what are you going to do about it? And we have one of our modules is how to cope with setbacks, which is basically dealing with...
I want to take this course on play football. It's going to help me as an entrepreneur.
Do you know what? It's actually helped me get through it. It's actually helped me go on. Yeah, but it's how to cope with setbacks is really how do you develop resilience. Yeah. And one thing we talk about is that we'll have young people talk about, well, I'm coming back from injury, or I've come back from some sort of criticism, or whatever it may be. But the key thing we tell them is about, you can come back, and we talk about bounce back ability. So it's bounce back ability, but you have to overcome. So you have to come back and overcome. That's the overcoming is the important piece. It's okay to come back, but you have to overcome it, and that's where resilience is developed.
Wow. Do you have any examples of that in particular? Like, what I'm saying is, because that's making a lot of sense in my head. I'm trying to think of even examples from my own life. Because you can come back as in, like, you can show up
Yep.
But unless you kind of, I don't know, slay the dragon that burnt you in the first place, have you really developed? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, it could be something like coming back from the setback, could be an injury. I mean, we've had players, I've had a player be out and he had something wrong with his left leg. I can't remember exactly the extent of the injury, and came back and then he injured his right leg.
Oh, man.
And then he's back and he's out again and he's just been up and down, emotions all over the place. Then he gets back and he feels fully fit and he goes out onto the field and he can't perform because he's afraid of getting injured again.
Yeah.
So it was one of those ones where he had to go in and he had to overcome it. And he had to overcome it by realising he has to get hit at some stage and he can't pull out of a tackle. And then when he goes in, realises that, gets hit on his first tackle and goes, I'm okay here.
Nice.
And once that happened, and you should hear that kid verbalising it, unbelievable. When you hear him say, when I went in and I realised that I have to take this hit and whatever happens. And once he get hit and he get back on his feet, then it was just, the barriers were off. It was just, okay, now I'm good.
Legend.
Yeah.
Talk to me about a penguinologist.
So been in America a long time, get asked a lot of questions, and there's just been times where we'll go in and you'll be sitting at a bar, you're sitting at a restaurant, whatever it may be. People hear the accent again. Oh, you're from Australia? Or where are you from? And sometimes you just kind of, I'm from Australia. You go with it. And the kind of go-to story sometimes when you're just ready to take the piss is when you just have to give a different story because it's the same old football. Yeah. So we were at a bar in about 40 minutes from Worcester, or Boston, a place called Worcester, and we were sitting at the bar. Family come up. And the guy goes, oh, where are you guys from? I'm like, oh, from Ireland. I'm like, oh, what are you doing? I don't live here. I'm just over visiting my friend who's a football coach. I'm like, oh, okay. What do you do? I'm like, I actually work with animals. I was like, all right, okay. What are you, like, you a vet? And I said, no, I'm a penguinologist. And he said, oh, a what? A penguinologist? He goes, what's that? And I went, well, I work with penguins. And he says, well, what are you doing here? I said, well, we're actually conducting a study at the aquarium in Boston. He said, well, what's going on? I said, well, what happens is the aquarium's right beside Logan Airport. And Terminal C, it's directly in line with where the penguins come out. So what happens is when the planes take off, the penguins look up at the airplanes and they fall on their back, and then they can't get back up on their feet. And he's like, no way. And I'm like, yeah. So we're trying to work out how we can get these penguins back up on their feet. And he's like, that's incredible. And then he'll turn, and I remember this guy, clear as day, he turns over and he calls his wife, you gotta come over. This guy's a penguinologist. And I'm like, oh my God, here we go. So that's, being a penguinologist.
That was fast thinking though. That's a good story.
We've been
I've been working on that bit for a while, like a comedian, yeah.
We've worked on it. But the best one was actually, we were in Dallas in June, and we were having dinner, and someone comes up, same thing, and penguinologist comes out, and the person he was asking said that the guy that I was with, who was my director, he said, oh, what do you do? And he goes, I'm a kangaroo catcher. And I did not see that one coming, so I put my head down because I was about to laugh. And he starts talking about he's from Australia and he has to go and catch kangaroos, and they're like, oh, that's awesome. And you see them walking away and speaking to their friends, going, oh, he's a penguinologist and he's a kangaroo catcher. And you're just, So
that's unbelievable. Class. What are you most excited about being home for Christmas?
Just seeing family and friends. It's, I think Ireland's probably the best place for Christmas. You get a false sense of what it's really like because I've got friends in London, friends all over the place, and they usually all come back for Christmas. So when you come back, you're like, oh, I wonder if I could move back home because but then your friends will say, it's not, I haven't seen these boys in 6 months. So you get a false sense of what it's really like. But no, just seeing everyone and just kind of the festive spirit. And it's, America's weird. America isn't, they have all the Christmas movies, but they're not very, it's one day and it's done. Yeah. Where it's like a 2-week event. Well, it's probably a month event, the whole of December, and then that period in between Christmas and New Year's where you don't really know what day of the week it is.
I love that that lull. Whereas you're right in America, it's just kind of, all right, lads, back to work.
Yeah, well, it's Thanksgiving. I remember first Thanksgiving having Christmas dinner, and I'm like, what do you have for Christmas dinner? And they're like, I don't know, always pasta or fish or something.
Ridiculous.
I'm like, yeah, not for me.
Mad.
Yeah.
When you come home, is there a place, and that's as vague as it sounds, that you must go to or that you love going to?
Used to just be the Ormer Road, having a pint in the local, and then I used to love getting into Fibbers just for the music. Yeah. But then now Belfast has become live music everywhere. So for me, my perfect night for me is just going a bit of live music and pint of Guinness, to be honest. So there's the Cathedral Quarter. Like it's probably people who live here, it's like, oh, the Cathedral Quarter, everyone goes. But when you just come back for a couple of weeks, it's a good place to go.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Does Guinness taste different here?
100%. 100%.
In what way?
It's just smoother, and yeah, we were at a wedding. Where were we? I was at a wedding in May, and it must have been the smoothest pint of Guinness. And I couldn't believe it. And there's a bar in Boston called Mr. Dooley's, and they serve the most pints of Guinness per square mile, I believe, in America.
Wow.
And it does it. And we always say, oh, pint of Guinness, let's go to Dooley's.
Yeah.
And I got back, and I think it was a week after being home, went to Dooley's, and I tried it, and I went, this isn't good.
Wow.
And that's the God's honest truth. And there's a friend of mine who's from Belfast, and I was with him, and he goes, Seán, you're lying. I was like, Tommy, honestly, this isn't good.
Unbelievable.
But yeah, no, there's definitely a difference, yeah.
Landing a plane then, a few more before we wrap up.
Yeah.
If you could take anyone, dead or alive, from Northern Ireland out for a pint of the smoothest Guinness ever, who would you take and where would you take them?
Has to be George Best, doesn't it?
Yeah, man.
It has to be George, just to listen to the stories.
Yeah.
Could you imagine? I mean, you'd be there all night. And I'd have to take them to... I'd actually want him to take me somewhere.
Yeah.
Like, George, you take me wherever you want and
Yeah.
just talk, because, I mean, as a player, I mean, I just think it's sad kind of he didn't play at the top level for as long as he did. I mean, but
Yeah.
the years he did play, he was unbelievable.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I think it'd be a great night out with him.
Who's Steve, the undercover FBI agent?
That was an early one in America when we went over, and it was the end of the trip, and our coach said, listen, I think it was 19, must be 19, let's go to Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, a few days on the beach, I think 5 days. We're staying in this resort, and we got a little shuttle bus into the little kind of town, and we were the only ones on it every night. And then this one night, a guy gets in, Steve. he's in the front of the white van. We just start chatting to him, as people from here do. We just talk to anyone and chatting away to him. Steve, are you here by yourself? Yeah, I'm just here on business from Washington. All right, okay. Brilliant. Get outside the white, off at the little town centre. And we said, Steve, are you by yourself? He goes, yeah. He goes, you're not meeting anyone? He goes, no. Do you want to join us for dinner? He goes, I'd love to. Go to walk into this bar. The guy, it's a big guy sitting on a stool, and he just goes, ID. And you remember the European student cards?
Yeah.
Hand him one of those. He's like, not tonight.
No chance.
No chance. Not happening. I'm like, what are you talking about? I mean, I'm a European. I'm a student. And he goes, no, need a passport. And I go, okay. So we go across to an Irish bar, and straight in, sausage rolls were ordered. Had ordered 4 pints, and we said cheers. And Steve's like, thanks for inviting me out. And the coach, who was the adult, I mean, we're 19, but the adult at the time, he must have been in his mid-40s, he said, so Steve, what line of work are you in? And he just said, federal law enforcement, FBI. And I just remember sipping on my beer, looking, going, uh-oh. And he's like, oh, no, you guys are awesome. You invited me out. You didn't have to. You're legal to drink in your own country. And I was like, wow. And so we said, so what are you here doing? He goes, I'm actually on a case. I'm undercover. And I'm like, all right. So we had a few beers, had some food, and he goes, do you want to go to the bar across the road? And he said, but he's not going to let us in. He goes, we're going to the bar across the road. So away we went, and the guy's like, you're not getting in. Steve flashed his badge. Off and we go. We're drinking Scorpion Bowls. We're having a laugh. And the best thing about it, Matthew, was that it was back in the day where we had the Polaroids, just the normal camera.
Yeah.
And I remember going back home a couple of months or so later, get the pictures developed. My mum's going through the pictures, goes, who's this guy? And that's Steve, the FBI guy.
You're like, don't even worry
about it. Yeah. So I need to know. Yeah, and you don't need to know.
Unbelievable, man. He's like, maybe needed to use you as fodder. Maybe like you were part of the case. Like there's a guy in there.
Yeah.
We were here with my sons. And you're like, yeah, okay, Dad.
Yeah. So
mental. I'll split this last question slightly, and you can take it whatever way you want.
Yep.
I usually ask people, and I build it up, and I try to make it really emotional, but I'll just give it to you straight. You can choose. Like asking people, like, what advice would you give to an 18-year-old version of yourself? Right? So maybe give me that, and then kind of, if you want to, I want to ask something around, like, if I had a 13-year-old son, say, what advice would you give me as a father? Right? Now, I know you're not a parent.
Yeah.
But you have a really unique insight into that. So let's do both of them. What would you, 18-year-old version of yourself, and I'll hit you with the last one.
18-year-old self would be, just go for it, and don't be afraid to fail. Like, do not be afraid to fail. Because, and I think that's the the biggest thing I get, and what I tell young players now, is that that's where all learning. That's where you have to struggle, and if you fail, you'll learn. That's where you'll learn. If everything's just going smooth and you're in a false sense of security, thinking that's how life is, life's not. So it's just go for it. And if you make a mistake, you're going to learn, and the next time you'll again come back to self-reflection. So if I was 18, I would just, any opportunity that came my way, I would just, don't say no, just go for it. And if you don't know, I think, was it Richard Branson maybe said it, that if you don't have the skill set for a job, and you get offered a job, like, take it, and then you learn on the job, something along those lines. So I'd absolutely just, don't be afraid to fail.
So if I was a father of a 13-year-old, what advice would you give me?
Football, or just in general?
In general.
Don't push them, in terms of, don't push what you want them to be on them, because they'll resent you for it. Just let them, if they enjoy playing football, let them enjoy playing football. If they want to be a ballet dancer, let them be a ballet dancer. Want to be an artist, whatever they want to do, I would just and support them. And if they are, let's say, a footballer, and they lose a game and they get into the car, don't start saying, oh, you should have done this, you should have done that. Just ask them, do you want to go get lunch?
Yeah, you want a Big Mac?
What, you want a Big Mac? Exactly.
Yeah.
Because they'll appreciate that. And then they'll feel like that's a safe space, because there's a lot of kids that I know that, and there's actually an article about it, that's for youth soccer, that's the dreaded piece, is after a game, getting in the car with their parents afterwards.
Wow.
Yeah. Which is crazy.
It's sad as well.
It's sad. It's really sad.
Yeah,
it's really sad. Yeah.
Wow. Seán, thank you. It was awesome. I think it was the best podcast ever from somebody who has been awake for 60 hours straight. I just flew California, Boston, Dublin in about a day. So
no, thanks for having me. Great experience.
It, and have a great Christmas for your family.
You too.
Yeah.
Thanks so much.
Legend. That's a wrap. Oh, beautiful, mate. That was smashing.